Psychology, however, can take things to extremes. That is why it's so hard to call a top. When I went on True Geordie about 3 years ago, I said, look, Bitcoin way overvalued. All it is computer code. I think it's going to go down. And it did. It went down to about from 20,000 to 4,000. Recently, it broke back above 20,000. Now, that's called a technical breakout. And when something does break above an old high, there's no limit as to how high psychology could take it. So we saw it, wham, right up to 40,000. It's got as high as 44,000 today. Could go to 100. I still think Bitcoin is worthless. This is psychology driving the market. It's a millennial bubble. But how high does it go in the meantime? Because I think it's worthless, do I sell it short at 45,000, at 50,000? No, I certainly do not. Because like I said, you never know how high it's going to go when psychology takes over. Let's roll the clock back now to Holland. Tulip mania, hundreds of years ago. People were remortgaging their houses to buy tulip bulbs. Tulip bulbs were more valuable than gold. And that's just the effects of crowd psychology. If people are interested in this, there's two books I read as a kid. And one is Le Bon, The Crowd, and the other is Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. Because when I got interested in the stock market at 14, I went down Widnes Library and ordered dozens of books on the subject. And I quickly learned this is not a pure mathematical thing. It is a crowd psychology thing. And once you tune into that, you can learn how to ride those trends. And the other thing I would recommend to people is a book called The Secrets for Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets by Stan Weinstein. I had that one read as a teenager. I must have read it about 10 times. And later in life, when I was a top producing stockbroker, Stan Weinstein, guru, actually started mentoring me over the phone. I was one of his corporate clients. Every time, he called the office because he was on Wall Street Week and that he was this big figure in that world. All the brokers were looking at me like Stan Weinstein's on the phone. There's also a forum that discusses and puts out stock selections based exclusively on Stan Weinstein's methodology, and that is called stageanalysis.net, of which I am a member. And I think the last thing I posted on that was that Zoom had done a technical breakout around the beginning of the corona. I didn't buy any myself. God, I wish I had. If you look at the subscriber growth in Zoom numbers and the share price jump, I mean, that is definitely a company that is going places in terms of revenue and earnings per share growth, which what drives companies' values. The short sellers on GameStop looked at the financials. They hadn't made money in years. They're still losing money now. So that valuation in the billions had no resemblance to reality. But these things are never a straight line. The people who buy them on the hype end up just getting wiped. And these things have to return to their fair market value eventually. That's called the efficient market hypothesis. And the fair market value is based on the discounted cash flow and earnings of everything that the company is going to make in the future. And people say, well, look, if the short sellers are buying all the short squeezers are buying all the shares, how on earth are the shares ever going to come down? Well, what happens is the company can issue more shares at any time. And they often do when share prices go up that high. The insiders start to sell all of their shares. They can't believe their luck. They've got shares at almost zero, millions of them. And next thing, it's gone from 5 to almost 50. And they're insider shares. Believe me, they are filing reports to sell their shares as quick as possible. So these things are flashes in the pan. The stock market will always go back to a fair market value at some point. But in the meantime, psychology creates these huge swings, which if you can read the trends and forecast the trends, you can capitalize on those swings.
Why do you think Bitcoin is worthless? Don't you think the concept of Bitcoin and having a currency that's not able to be manipulated by the federal government or by billion-dollar hedge funds, don't you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely, I completely agree. So, what is the value of a commodity? Exchange value, industrial value, portability, transferability, now, and supply. So, look at the value of gold. There's only so much supply of gold in the world. Look at the value of, any other precious asset. Bitcoin has the flagship factor, but anyone can create a cryptocurrency. So the supply is potentially unlimited for people creating cryptocurrencies. Surely someone else can create a cryptocurrency with all the exact same attributes as Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
The supply is potentially infinite. It's not something you're mining out of the ground that industry's going to use that has this actual value. And, eventually the governments will capitalize on that weakness in cryptocurrencies, I believe, to bring the values back down. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the government. I'm all for everything that you just said, but I just think that it's a psychological bubble created by millennials and perpetuated by millennials, and it's going to have to come crashing down at some point. But right now, it is on a red hot turn. It's going to the moon, Alice.
Yeah, it's at like 42,000 last time I checked. I think it was this morning. It's insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've even talked to, lots of Bitcoin experts, and they all say don't invest in it. Just use it as something to if you can do transactions with it casually, you know what I mean? Not if you think about, a lot of people say, if you think about investing in Bitcoin, just picture yourself throwing it away or lighting that money on fire. If you wanted, like, if somebody owes you some money for a service and they happen to have Bitcoin, ask them to pay you in Bitcoin. But don't take a bunch of your money and put it into there, because it's basically just like burning it.
I saw that news story recently. I think it was the German authorities arrested a fraudster that had like tens of millions of Bitcoin, and he wouldn't give them the password, so they can't access it. But they've kind of like done something so he can't access it either.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool thing about Bitcoin. The government can't take your money away no matter what you've done.
Yeah, I like that.